So this part of the tutorial is going to cover if you had your LiDAR prepared for you by Brace or Larry Koo, and you received an asset file. So they would have sent you, you paid them like $30. They sent you an asset file, and you've downloaded that asset file. First thing you need to do is, if it's zipped up, you need to unzip it. But in there, there's going to be a Unity asset file, and you need to have access to that. If you did the LiDAR yourself, you can certainly watch this. There might be some good learning experience, but you can skip this. If you generated your own LiDAR, you should be all set at that point. The next important thing is at this point you should have Unity installed. There is a section in here that I explain how to install Unity. So you should have the hub installed, you should have the correct version of Unity, and you should have the base project installed that you can open up. So I'm just going to open up my project, which you should have available to you. So when you open up your Unity project, you're going to have this sample scene first. And the first thing we need to do is create a new scene for our project. So we're going to double click on this import terrain scene. And you can see that it opens up a new blank scene. And if we look over here, it's just an empty scene that we're going to start building out on. We're going to put our terrains in here. The first thing is we're going to go deep into Unity later on. This is just really going to get us going at this point. So now what you need to do is come up here to Assets, Import Package, Custom Package, and you need to find that Unity asset that was sent to you by Brace. In this case, here's my example. I have this one right here, and I'm going to open it up. At this point, it does some decompressing, unzips the asset inside of Unity, and you're going to get this screen, which is everything that is inside of that package. And we're just going to simply do an import. When we do that import, it is going to create a new folder inside of our project called Terrain Backup. It might take a minute or two, and I might just pause the video here for a second. So when that is finished unpacking, we're going to go under our project directory here. We're going to find the newly created terrain backup folder, and we're going to open it. And this is the content of that terrain, or the LiDAR package that was sent to you by Brace. There's a lot of stuff in here. This light blue, I don't know if we'll use this or not. It is referenced in some documents for some troubleshooting. But you have in here, you've got the layout of your course. Which is a reference from Brace to help you out with the layout of your course. We've got our inner LiDAR, okay? We've got our outer LiDAR, and we've got our overlays. We've got our inner overlays. We got one from Bing and one from Google. And you can use either one of these. It really just depends on which one's better, right? Sometimes Bing is better than Google, and sometimes Google is better than Bing. We've got the same thing for our outers as well. We've got our overlay Bing, and we've got our overlay Google as well for our inner and outer. And then he sometimes might put a scorecard in here. And we've got some other things in here. I'm not sure what this LiDAR scene is here. But what we're going to do here is we have this import terrain that we created. We're going to take our inner LiDAR, which is this thing, this blocky Lego looking thing, and we're simply going to grab it and drag it over to an empty space inside of our import terrain window. And at that point, you'll see that if we move around, and I am right-clicking now, if I right-click and move around and zoom out by using my mouse wheel, you can see that we have our inner terrain. First thing is, we need to rename this. We do not want to rename anything terrain. It causes issues game side. So we're just going to click that. Terrain.
So quick edit here because I made some mistakes in the videos. You want to make sure that you have the right naming convention when you create terrains. So let me go through this quick. In this video, you see I named my terrain inner. That is slightly incorrect. When you have a main inner terrain, we must call it something like inner terrain. It must have the word, not work. It must have the word terrain in it. Okay, that main terrain. So for example, we could just name it terrain. That's perfectly fine. If you aim it inner, like I did in the video, that's a no-go. You're going to have some problems game side. You're not going to see it until you publish or you try to run your game inside GS Pro, because GS Pro is looking specifically for the word terrain in one terrain and in one terrain only. Okay. Another good example is if you name it inner and then parentheses terrain, that's perfectly fine as well because it has the word terrain in it. When you create your other trains, like your grasses train, which you'll do a little later, and your foliage train, which is later, and your outer, which you may or may not have, you cannot use the word terrain inside of them. For example, you cannot name your outer terrain. That's a no-go. That'll cause problems. Same thing. If you just name it outer, it's perfectly fine. Your foliage, just name it foliage, and it has to be called foliage. There's actually some scripts that don't call it leaves or trees, call it foliage. And then do not call it foliage terrain. All right. Back to your normally scheduled program.
And simply call it inner. Okay. We're going to do the same thing for the outer as well. So we have our outer, and this is completely optional. You do not need an outer terrain, but I'm going to show you how to do it. It's completely optional. It's really for aesthetics. And if you want some of that perimeter scenery involved, so I'm going to take the outer, I'm going to drag it over, and you're going to see it names it terrain. Right click, rename, and I'm going to call this one outer. Now at this point, I'm going to right mouse click again, and I'm going to pan around. And I'm looking around, and you'll see that if I take my inner, which is right here, I'll highlight, I can see with this mouse, and I'm going to go up here to the inspector, my inner shape is not lined up with my, I'm going to highlight the outer, my outer, okay? The golf course on my outer actually sits out here. I can zoom way over here, and what I'm doing is I'm right clicking and hitting Shift W to move quickly. If I look over here, that's my golf course, but on my inner it is over here, so I need to align these. Brace gives you this README base file, and in here he's got your terrain sizes. So my inner terrain size is 1452 here. My outer terrain size is 5000. I need to shift my outer terrain so that it lines up with my inner terrain, and that's just going to take a little bit of math. So to calculate how we move that outer, we're going to take our outer terrain size, which is 5000 according to this file. We're going to subtract our inner terrain size, which is 1452, and then we're going to divide that by 2, which equals 1744. Okay, you need to do that with your terrain sizes specific to your project. So now I'm going to go back to my outer terrain, highlight it here, and I'm going to shift my X by negative 1774, that number, my Z by negative 17.4, that. And now you can see when I move over these, they're going to line up much better. And I'm using right click, the WASD keys to move around. So now if I come in here and I disable my inner, you can see that I don't see a shift at all. If I disable my outer, everything disappears. I'll turn my inner back on. There it is. I'm going to turn my outer back on, and you can see that they align perfectly. So we now have our inner and outer terrains inside of Unity. Last thing to do is to rename our imported terrain scene file. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to save scene as. I'm going to go down and I'm going to highlight my scenes. And I'm going to save this as Rock Creek version 1 underscore PSP. Save. And now I have my inner, outer, and base project with a terrain on it.